The planeswalker Chandra Nalaar had been sent to the plane of Kefalai, a world known for its bustling and picturesque cities. But Chandra was on a mission. Her target? The Sanctum of Stars, a museum known even across worlds as a place housing famed relics. And in her case, though she didn't know it at the time, a scroll with a spell that would change the multiverse forever. Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today's story spans numerous sets, mini worlds, and nearly 2 decades of Magic history, plus a new card in Modern Horizons 3. Ready for this one? Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to need to rewind the clocks until about 2007 to Time Spiral block. Now, a lot of people tell me that many of my stories start out this way, and probably for good reason, because a lot of wild things happened in Time Spiral. But we're skipping over the first 2 sets and going straight to one of the most unusual sets in all of Magic, Future Sight. A look at the potential futures of Magic. It contained tons of weird one-off mechanics, unusual Magic designs, and most interesting to me, glimpses at places Magic could potentially go in the future. Put in a special Future Sight frame, they weren't just mechanically strange, they were from worlds or times long ahead, each its own portal into a potential Magic set. And indeed, some have even come to pass, like Nessian Courser eventually showing up in Theros 6 years later. I know, personally, I'm still waiting for Ikwatana, the plane hinted at on Narcomoeba and then shown more on Jace's Phantasm and the Aether Flues. But I digress. More importantly, a card in the set during design had just gotten moved around. There was a common red card with Mountain Walk that you could cycle by paying 0, and when you cycled it, it dealt 2 damage to yourself. If that sounds familiar, it's because it got moved into black and became Street Wraith. Imagine what would have happened if Street Wraith was red. Okay, actually, probably not much differently. I guess it was the free cycling that was a problem. But anyway, that left a hole in red. So the team quickly came up with something new to fill it. A card that once put into the set wouldn't change the entire rest of the way. A simple damage spell, except it was colorless. That's what would make it weird and unusual. When asked what color frame the card should use, now Vice President of Magic Design, Aaron Forsyth, left this comment. My vote is for the yet unused colorless spell frame from the future. And that's how Ghostfire was born. The creative team gave it that name and wrote a simple single sentence of flavor text. It even contains a character you probably know, Ugin. There's just one little thing that might not be immediately obvious if you weren't playing Magic back in 2007. Ugin? Yeah, we hadn't created him yet. Now, I would love to tell you some story about how we carefully seeded in Ugin almost a decade early, how we wove him in after all this time. You know, it's not outside our range to do this. I mean, we work in advance on things all the time. But in this case, that's not the case. It was just a throwaway name and flavor text. No more than the name Set's Tiger or the flavor text about the Vindir Storm Chasers on Second Wind. But actually, I think the truth might be even more interesting. Chandra attempted to steal the scroll from the Sanctum of Stars, and unfortunately left the whole museum burning in her wake. Though she lost the original scroll, she managed to make a copy, and her new friend, a planeswalker by the name of Gideon Jura, pointed her to the world it came from, Zendikar. Mana-rich landmasses, truly treacherous terrain, floating hedrons, and after searching high and low and running into characters from Anawan the Ruin Sage to 4 goblins named the Gurgle Brothers, she finally made it to where fate had drawn her, the Eye of Ugin. But Chandra wasn't alone. Jace, following Chandra in pursuit of her and her scroll, and Sarkhan Vol, who was protecting the Eye in service of Nicol Bolas, appeared quickly on the scene. And as they did, a hedron in the room began to react. A fight broke out with Sarkhan taking on both Jace and Chandra, and problematically for Chandra, normal magic, her normal fire magic she used to fix everything, didn't seem to be working in this chamber. So, in the nick of time, she managed to put together a few bits of knowledge and called upon the spell the scroll hinted at. And in the Eye of Ugin, alongside Jace, to defeat Sarkhan, she managed to cast Ghostfire, and something began to stir. When you're writing a long-running story like Magic with so many years of history, there's this technique called reaching back into the past. The idea here is basically that you can always come up with something brand new and add to the narrative, sure. But where applicable, where you can, it makes a lot of sense to reach back into the past at things that you've already made and incorporate them into your story. It makes the whole world feel much more like a living, breathing place with real people and a real narrative, not just you making stuff up over and over and over again. For example, kind of how in Conflux, when we wanted to introduce a new villain, we've reached back and grabbed Nicol Bolas, who had basically not been seen since, to become a big villain that now basically everybody knows and many love, or at least fear. So when we were working on Rise of the Eldrazi and this huge colorless surge, we thought, why not reach back into the past and grab Ghostfire? I mean, nobody knew who Ugin was anyway. Why couldn't he have been involved this whole time? So from that one card, Ghostfire, we back engineered the Eye of Ugin, created Ugin, and led to this whole story about the unlocking of the Eldrazi. Oh, did I not mention that part? The Eye of Ugin was the lock on the containment system for the Eldrazi. Created by Ugin, Nahiri, and Sorin, it could only be fully unlocked by having 3 planeswalkers in one place and using Ugin's special Ghostfire magic, which is exactly what Chandra had just caused to happen. The Eldrazi Titans were unleashed on Zendikar. Ulamog, Kozilek, and Emrakul began to ravage the world. Each of the 3 planeswalkers went to go try and assist in their own way. Sark and Vol, broken by his failures at the Eye and dismissed by Nicol Bolas himself, decided to return to his homeworld, Tarkir. A world where all the dragons had died off. He learned from Narset that Ugin was dead, and that, in a way, Ugin was the soul of Tarkir. And when Ugin died, the whole plane was thrown off balance, its dragon storms snuffed. They took a journey to Ugin's nexus, and Sarkhan used it to travel over 1,000 years into the past, right to the day of Ugin's defeat. Watching as none other than Nicol Bolas struck Ugin down, Sarkhan and Vol secretly used one of the very Hedrons from Zendikar to preserve Ugin's body and help it regenerate over the next 1,000 years. And in doing so, he rewrote history, bringing Ugin the Spirit Dragon, keeper of Ghostfire, back to life in present day. When we made Ugin in Fate Reforged, we knew one thing the Planeswalker needed to do from the very beginning: cast Ghostfire. It was the card that caused him to exist in the first place. By the way, did you ever notice that his ultimate ability is the opposite of Nicol Bolas Planeswalker? Fun little reference there. Anyway, that's not the only card Ghostfire led to either. Ghostfire Blade is, of course, connected to Ugin, as is Omarthus, one of the few others who managed to use this colorless magic. So this single card, Ghostfire, a simple little common with a then throwaway line of flavor text, ended up spawning a chamber named after it, tied into the Eldrazi, led to a beloved colorless planeswalker, a time travel storyline, and so much more. And now, in Modern Horizons 3, there's another nod to it, Ghostfire Slice, a reference right back to the old Ghostfire, down to the same mana cost. The Slice apparently deals 1 more damage than plain old Ghostfire too. And now, this part is really not canon, but I like to personally believe that the same person casting Ghostfire in the original art is facing away from us in the art for Ghostfire Slice. A little nod to where this whole story started 17 years ago. I tried something a little bit different today, weaving Magic lore and card design together, and I would love to know what you think. So please post your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and subscribe so you can be around for even more videos. I'll talk with you again soon, and in the meantime, may you appreciate this otherwise random uncommon from Modern Horizons 3. And remember, you got this. Manage you as quickly as possible with, like a Goblin Bushwhacker, and you have you make a bunch of tokens and you do that. And this deck is more like build up some artifacts, kill you from hand with all the glitters, or slap down early all the glitters, make a huge creature. So the kind of removal that's good against the 2 decks is very different, right? You want pinpoint removal often against all the glitters.